we didn't see that much attack from Villa in the second half. Spurs were allowed to get back into the game. But overall, how do you think Unai Emery will be feeling?
Well, I'm sure he's delighted. This is a FA Cup third-round tie that they're through. I think they played well in the first half, but as you said in the studio, in the second half, this was almost all Spurs, especially the first 30 minutes. They came out in the second half thinking, we've got nothing to lose. We were 2-0 down, we had a poor performance, and the players showed the reaction that you expect as a manager. But in the end, it wasn't enough, and I think they are lacking some quality throughout the team. I mean, I could see Xavi Simons playing a really good second half. Joao Palhinha, he showed that aggression not only after the final whistle, but as a team, I think it wasn't enough, and that is worrying for Thomas Frank. Of course, the Villa fans are delighted, and I'm surprised he didn't mention my prediction because, as far as I remember, I did call it 2-1.
You did call it 2-1. You did. Good shout. But that's why we pay you the big bucks, Thomas. That is why indeed. Speaking of big bucks, Jurgen Klinsmann. Jurgen, you went for Spurs to try and find a fight back. They did fight back indeed, but ultimately it was too little too late. We talked about what kind of reaction we would get from Thomas Frank's men in the second half. I'm sure he'd be happy that we did see a reaction, but ultimately it wasn't enough.
It was not enough. It was much, much better second half. There's no doubt about it. But Spurs often, when the season goes the wrong direction, it's always the cup competitions that lifts them and gives them hope. And in fact, for something like that today, you have that chance to get back into your flow in a certain way with an FA Cup tie at home against Aston Villa. You cannot come up with a first half like they did today, and then rescuing it just in the second half is just simply not enough. I mean, I was pleased, they created more. They had moments, where they could even have it a tie at the end, but it's not enough. There was not enough desperation, urgency, aggressiveness that you would need in order to get through an FA Cup tie, which is always, every game in an FA Cup is a final. It's knockout, and you have to be nasty. You have to be hugely aggressive. You have to kind of dictate the level of aggression on the field, and they missed that completely in the first half, and they did better second half, but it's not enough. You cannot get out of such a prestigious competition in that way.
It's not enough indeed. This is actually the first time that Spurs have failed to reach the fourth round of the FA Cup since the 2013-14 season, Casey. And that's just one more record, if you will, now on Thomas Frank's record that he's not going to want. And we speak about not being enough. Overall, it's just not enough. And we feel like time is ticking away from him.
I think he's had a little bit of a built-in excuse with the players that we showed, I think, in the pregame that are on the treatment table, that aren't able to compete and to help the manager get the message across that he's trying to do. Now, squad depth is always an issue, but when you have that many players out and then you get into a situation like this where you're not even competing in that first half, to me, that's the most frustrating. It's one thing when the quality doesn't show up in the second half. At least they were competitive in that second half. They fought, they tried, they ran, they closed things down, they were more aggressive. And then what you needed was that little bit of quality. And maybe that little bit of quality that Spurs have are on the treatment table instead of on the pitch.
Yeah, Jurgen, do you feel like it's enough to blame the fact that Spurs' woes simply just boil down to the fact that they have 10 senior players out?
No, at the end of the day, if I look at the starting 11, I look also, who came on off the bench. I mean, if they're maybe right now in the best shape or not, but it's still a lot of quality. It's still capable, to win a FA Cup tie at home against obviously Aston Villa team that is in a good flow at the moment. But, if you are a championship or a League One team, you still have the chance, with a real fight, with real desperation, with spirit, to beat a Premier League side in the FA Cup tie. So no, for me, the injuries is no reason. No, it's no alibi. It's not an excuse. You still have to go in there, with a high level of aggressiveness and the willingness to give them a real fight, a nasty fight, a fight where you are desperate to get some a result, because obviously in the Premier League things are not running your way either. So this is. I don't think it's a discussion about how big the squad is, how many players are injured. It's about that everybody needs to look there in the mirror and say, did I do enough today to beat Aston Villa? Every single player, every person that is involved with the team, has to ask that question, because I mean, this FA Cup means a lot to Spurs fans. I mean, and it has a huge tradition, obviously, and importance in England. But this was a huge chance, to get back into some positiveness, and they didn't make that happen, even if they played better second half. So it's a tough time to be a Spurs fan, that's for sure. And got to give Thomas a compliment with the right prediction.
Yes, indeed. Thomas did predict things right. And Thomas, in the pregame, we were talking about the atmosphere there in London, in North London specifically, from the Spurs fan, because they have been growing a lot more disgruntled and a lot more vocal. What was it like there at the full-time whistle? Because usually once they become this vocal and tempers flare over, the board takes notice, and then something's got to give.
Yeah, well, at the beginning of second half, I was talking to some of the fans and said, enjoy the second half. And they said, we try. I would argue for 30, 35 minutes to have enjoyed watching the team because they showed the right mentality. But at the final whistle, it's the same again, the same story. The result is not the right thing. And I think these people continuously are frustrated because they don't know which direction this club is heading. Are we developing talent? Are we aiming to be top 6 again? Do we want to win trophies? Whatever is going to happen here, it's not quite clear. And this is what what frustrates them is, which way are we going? Because this here is a good performance for some parts of the game, but we want more. And as long as it continues this way, you can change your manager, but I don't think this on its own will change the whole direction the club is going. So overall, some happy faces for 20, 30 minutes, but most of the people, they're left frustrated again.
Interesting there, Casey, what Thomas brings up, the fact that we just don't know what direction Spurs want to go in. What direction should they be going in?
Well, I think obviously when they decided to part ways with Daniel Levy after so many years, we knew that there was going to be a learning curve, that it was going to take some time to figure out what is that future direction of Tottenham going to be. And, you kind of hope that, and I think the hope was that second half performance, and you heard the crowd
get behind
the team and really try to get them to see if they could, turn around a 2-0 deficit from a terrible first half performance. And so, I mean, the fans are there. They're just waiting for something to really get behind. And it's easy to say, let's bring in a new manager. That will do it. But I think Thomas rightfully points out, it's more than just that. There's going to be, I think, this season, get through this season, and I think this summer is going to be a very, very important summer at Tottenham Hotspur.
Well, I think Thomas is getting uncomfortable because he's saying, come on, why are we still talking about Spurs when it was Villa that have won, knocking them out once again? And as we said, Aston Villa yet going or eyeing another deep run in yet another competition. This is who they have coming up next in their schedule in the Premier League. They've got Everton. Then they're in action in Europe at Fenerbahce. They've got Newcastle in the Premier League and then back to Salzburg in the Europa League. Thomas, just looking at what Aston Villa is on right now and how Unai Emery has them playing, what is their ceiling? Because it almost looks like they want to flirt with giving Arsenal a push for the Premier League title as well.
I think they did for a bit, and then they were knocked down heavily at Arsenal when they were beaten 4-1. I think that was a reality check. However, it's most of the time, I don't think anybody really predicted Villa to be in the top 3 at this stage of the season. They're still in Europe, and overall, it's just looking so good. And again, we saw that tonight. I don't think this was a top performance over 90 minutes, but it was enough. They're maturing. Unai Emery has been at this club long enough that the players nobody wants. And he always gets the best out of these players. And as I said before the game, it's always fun to watch. So it's so nice to be a Villa fan now. And I know these fans that have been suffering for a while, but in recent 2 or 3 years, it's been a lot of fun. The challenge will be, however, of course, getting through this period, keeping your best players fit. Then I still believe, of course, that the club can be in this top 3 position and maybe win a European trophy.
Oh, look at that. He says it with such a wry smile indeed. Oh, Thomas Hitzelsberger there, a very, very happy villain here today. Well,